Hey everybody, welcome back to the PetaPixel podcast. I've got my buddy here in Calgary, Chris here. Say hi, Chris.
Hi.
And way off in the land of mighty Portland, it's
Lots
who's
of bridges.
that? No one has ever described it as mighty. Hi,
I've
I'm
been
Jaron
there. It is
Schneider.
a mighty land. Actually, I think I said cute a lot more than mighty when I was there. It is a cute but mighty land.
You said cute every 5 minutes as we drove through different neighborhoods.
Everywhere we drove. Yeah. What a cute tree. Look at that cute fence.
You're walking in
what a cute
Japan, you don't
bakery.
say it once, which is very ironic. I don't know.
I just think Japan's not that cute. It's, exciting. But no, I don't think cute's the word for Japan
And Portland is,
specifically.
anyways. So
hard to-
obviously Jordan has some mental issues. That's okay. We respect that.
I mean,
And, let's keep
I
going.
guess like my personal question could be, what are your thoughts on Portland? But we've already covered that here, so we can just roll right by that. I'm not doing a personal question for everyone because there is a reckoning right at the start of this podcast. Okay. So we said months ago, if we can get to 200,000 subscribers by June, we're going to eat something terrible on the podcast. And it didn't happen. I didn't think that was overly optimistic, but we're still not quite there yet.
You got
so
us close.
that's it. It's not happening. No.
We
Punish.
appreciate the push. I don't know. I'm not heartless and cruel. I might still do something. Who knows? We'll see.
Okay.
Well, did you ever say what the foods were we were going to eat?
I
Yes.
don't know. We never did.
We
on
talked
the pod,
about
I
them.
don't think. Yeah. Oh, us. Yes. We just said what is everyone's least favorite. Chris's has definitely been implied on the podcast before, right, Chris?
Right. Yes. Natto. Natto is disgusting.
Which is funny
I
because
hate
it's
it.
one of my
Awful.
favorite foods.
Yeah.
I might
Yeah.
have it for lunch today.
Truly horrendous. I
Gross.
tried that as well, which would have been mine as well. But I've had a lifelong aversion to mushrooms, and I have like a very wide palate. I'll eat anything. I just can't get over mushrooms. I like eggplant. It's the same texture. It's not a
insane.
texture thing. I just don't enjoy mushrooms in any form. So
But
I
there's
was
so
just
many
going to eat
different
like a
kinds of
fistful of them.
fungi.
And not like the fun mushrooms, but like just for flavor. Although that would make for a hell of a podcast, probably.
The one for me, which is weird because I don't mind either of your two things. Mushrooms aren't my favorite, but I would happily eat them most of the time. And I love natto, but I was going to eat walnuts. And you specifically said I needed to cover them in ketchup because I also
Yeah, because that was
ketchup.
that was your runner-up.
Ketchup
so
covered
we
walnuts.
were going to make
Which would be really gross.
That's so disgusting.
I love ketchup. I love walnuts, but together, no. I would be.
Anyways,
walnuts.
I'm over the moon. We don't have to do that. So that's great. Now it's a work in progress. We don't have time frames. We don't have subscriber numbers, but I am pleased to announce we are not giving up on subscribers. We will be doing another competition. Well, not competition. What would you say? Stretch goal, Chris?
Stretch goal.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It's a
In
like
2024.
fundraiser. It's like a PBS fundraiser.
And
Like the
we are
thermometer.
negotiating. If you guys can get us to the target, Chris and I have to go back to work at a camera store, the camera store
At
specifically.
the camera store.
And
Which I think would be hilarious.
get a whole episode there. We'll get the TCS TV crew has offered to film that if we manage to achieve it. And I think we should probably fly Jaron up. I think that would be amazing, but no promises yet at this point. But
So
I
he
want him
could
to
be
be
the
like a
customer?
stock boy. A greeter would be
yeah.
outstanding.
Yeah, greeter. I would do a greeter or stalking. Which I've never done either of those activities, so that sure.
Oh man,
I want you
Welcome
running
to
the
the
phone.
camera store. Welcome.
Yeah.
he's
to
going
the
to steal
camera
all the
store.
Leicas. Don't let him in the room.
Anyways, so get excited for that. That is coming up in the future. But no personal questions this week as an additional punishment. So now we're going to start we're not going to start the intro because I'm going to tell you what we're going to talk about in this show, right, guys?
It's actually a lot of stuff this week. Tons of things to discuss. So yeah,
Lots of
sure,
news.
Jordan.
Yeah,
break it down.
yesterday GH7 was finally officially announced, and thankfully I've been shooting with that sucker. So we're going to talk about, what is the purpose of a $2,000 Micro Four Thirds camera, and the other big one is Sigma dropped an insane lens, the 28-45, the brightest full frame zoom lens ever. It's an f1.8 constant. We're going to talk about, is Sigma now mastering zooms as well as primes? We're going to look at some of their recent output and kind of compare that. And we've got some other news stories as well and tech support. We got bags of tech support, so we're going to get right into it.
Today's podcast is brought to you by OM System and their award-winning Tough TG7, a camera built to withstand the most extreme conditions. The Tough TG7 is built like a tank. It's waterproof, shockproof, freezeproof, and crushproof. Those are hard for me to say in a row. Whether you're hiking in the mountains, exploring underwater wonders, or simply documenting everyday moments, this camera rises to the occasion. Capable of enduring drops from heights of up to 7 feet and withstanding pressure of up to 220, that's 100 pounds. So 220 pounds, is that 100? What's kgf? That's what's in here. Kilograms? It's 100 kilograms sound right?
Kilogram. Yeah, I don't know what the F is.
That's
Let's
probably,
say
I think it's called a typo.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it can withstand the pressure of 220 pounds. The Tough TG7 remains unfazed even in bone-chilling temperatures of 14 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius. It features
Minus.
minus. There's no minus in here. You think it's minus? Do you remember this being that
14
good?
would be
Yes.
minus, yeah.
If you take this camera below 10 degrees Celsius, which is still a very mild day, it will explode.
So negative 10 sounds...
Negative 10 Celsius,
okay.
yeah.
Negative
Okay.
10. It will still
Yeah.
operate.
It's okay. I know you don't speak Canadian.
I don't. So 14 degrees Fahrenheit, negative 10 Celsius. I will get through this ad read if it's the last thing I do. It features a ceiling and double lock construction that delivers waterproof performance up to a depth of 50 feet. 15 meters? That sounds right.
Sounds right. Minus
Yeah, that sounds
15
right.
meters.
Yeah, there's no F after that. We're good.
So you can capture stunning shots underwater without the need for a housing. Though, if you prefer to go deeper, the PT-059 housing allows you to go up to a depth of 150 feet. I do not have a
How many
conversion
meters?
for that. I don't have a conversion for that one.
It's
That-
45 meters. It's
You can just do that in your
15
head.
meter- Well, 50 feet, 15 meters is 150 feet times 3. Anyway,
Wow, you guys are so good at math up
45
there.
meters.
Well, anyway, when you can go that deep, it makes it perfect for scuba diving. Anyone who values durability and reliability can benefit from the OM System Tough TG7. Whether you're a seasoned professional or avid adventurer, or simply seeking a camera that matches your active lifestyle, the Tough TG7 delivers. Recognized as one of the top digital cameras of 2024 by NBC News, PC Mag, and Wirecutter, its combination of cutting-edge technology and rugged construction ensures your memories are captured in stunning detail no matter where life takes you. Just in time for Father's Day and graduation gifts, save $50 on your purchase of an OM System Tough TG7. It's normally $550. Now it's $500. Take advantage of this special offer. Visit your local OM System authorized retailer or head to explore.omsystem.com/PetaPixel. Don't miss out on your chance to capture the extraordinary with the OM System Tough TG7. Every time I talk about the TG7, I think about the autoclavable hard case that they
Yeah,
made.
you like still
That you
autoclave.
could
Yeah.
for surgeries and whatnot.
Yeah, so you can use it for,
I didn't mention
that
any
wasn't in the
shower
ad copy at
shenanigans.
all. Like the surgeon, advisory side of it. They didn't talk about the macro either. That thing's amazing for macro.
Yeah. What'd you
and
say
it's
about the
wrong.
shower this time, Chris? I think the last time we had this.
I'm not going to say anything about the shower this time.
Well, seeing
Nobody
as it
has-
can go to a depth of
Nobody has
150
shower sex
feet.
anymore, so that's not cool anymore. So
Is it
yeah, I don't
not?
know.
I don't know. I'm sorry. We're not talking about this. I'm moving on. Oh, what's this on your chest there, Jordan?
Guys, I just really wanted to mention that we've been promising it for some time, and we just got the first samples of the new swag. So if you're just listening to it, I just showed my new T-shirt. It is how is it pronounced, Jaron? You're the gamer. Lakitu, Jordan?
I thought it was Lucky Two.
Lakitu. It's Jordan on the cloud with the video camera. And we're going to bring back the classic intro for the next few episodes to celebrate and remind you
merch.
all about this. So
We got lots of merch.
And Chris, what are you wearing today?
You can also buy this Loca shirt. I didn't get this because it's a fashion statement. This is to save me time during our lens testing videos, so I don't have to explain it.
Can you tell me what it says on the fine print for our podcast listeners?
Loca, it has pronunciation. It's Loca. Stands for longitudinal chromatic aberration. This is where you get color fringing in the foreground and background out of focus areas, and it's very hard to remove in post production. So that's what this says, and this is fantastic as a reminder. So if anybody wants that, we have these two. We got other shirts. You're going to see them soon. I think our Asian contingent of viewers will also appreciate the shirt coming out. So yes, it's going to be very good.
Do we have a date on that, Jaron?
Soon. I think actually I can get that launched before. We have other stuff that we're doing for the website and the channel that is coming this summer. I think we'll do the store first at this point. So expect it in June. And if you are actually curious where to get it, just keep checking the video descriptions of any of the new videos these guys put out, and I will eventually have it in there once we launch. But the shirts are pretty much ready. I just have to add them all to the store, which is a long and tedious process, but I will do that.
I'm going to be keeping an eagle eye on stock numbers of the Chris cartoon and the Jordan cartoon, and it's going to be an unofficial competition that exists only in my mind.
Always a competition with you.
Always a competition.
Deep-seated insecurity.
I'm not wearing a PetaPixel shirt today. If anyone has seen, I have worn a PetaPixel shirt before.
You have.
That one will be in the store as well. But this one is it's a Destiny shirt because this week I'm going to play Destiny because this is the final expansion for Destiny 2. Well, at least we think it's the final expansion. It's been 10 years.
What is this akin to for you? Is this your Super Bowl? Is this your Christmas? Is this?
It's really hard to explain because if you've been playing the same video game for 7 years and you played the game before that for an additional 3 years, so it's like one continuous story,
a decade,
for 10 years. I've met some of my best friends playing this game. I don't know, it's huge to me.
It's like if Jaron was like the number one regional champion in his pickleball circuit, his beer league pickleball circuit. Like, he's the best at it. He has a lot of friends from it, really enjoys doing it. Doesn't always do it. Yeah.
Not the best at it. Well, at any rate, let's move on to talk about some news stories. And when we have actual details on when and where you can buy the shirts, we'll definitely call it out on the podcast. Okay, so let's talk about what happened this week, and it was quite a bit. First, DJI seems pretty worried that it's about to get banned in the United States. They published a big picture, published the picture of the text. You do that on social media. And it says that a bill against DJI is expected to move in the U.S. Congress in June, which would impact U.S. operators' access to DJI drones. This applies to recreational, commercial, and government use. If DJI's FCC authorizations are revoked, U.S. operators would no longer be able to access new DJI drones, and their existing drone fleets may even need to be grounded. This bill is based on inaccurate claims and contradicts the technology-based policy approach that would raise the bar on drone security overall. DJI has been very vocally against this bill since it was introduced last year. It's called the Countering CCP Drones Act, and it was introduced by Congresswoman Elise Stefanik and Mike Gallagher, both Republicans, one from New York and one from Wisconsin. And given the success of the TikTok ban, I think there are multiple Congress people that feel emboldened by that and will now move to ban whatever's next on their list. And DJI has been in the crosshairs essentially since that bill passed. And it seems like it's going to move at least to a vote on the floor this month, which is a huge deal.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing is like TikTok, if it goes away in America, then you've already got like Reels and alternatives to that. But what is the alternative in America to like if DJI suddenly goes away? Are we going back to using like GoPro Karmas?
No, that's been discontinued. Remember 3D Robotics? That was like the biggest competitor.
Big time. Yeah, it had that little video game thing built into it. That was a smart idea.
Well, they went enterprise only. And then there was another company that was also competing up until last year, and they went enterprise only. I think Parrot might be the only, maybe Autel and Parrot are the only two.
I thought Autel was gone. You could get the giant, like the Sony, what's that big sucker?
Yeah, you're
like
right about
$10,000 cinema drone as well.
I think Autel was the one that I was thinking about that did decide to go away from consumer. So like DJI essentially owns this entirely. And without them, there will be no drones, really.
Well, there'll be a huge vacuum. I mean, they do own a monopoly, basically. I mean, would they just rebrand everything Hasselblad? I don't know if that would even work and get them past everything. But I mean, it's ironically, it's interesting because I bet you there's a lot of startup companies that would love nothing more than to see DJI change in the global market, at least get reduced so that they could then have a piece of the pie. But at the same time, I get smartphone usage. I do understand that. I mean, that really collects a lot of personal data about our wearable. If I'm going to look at it from a security standpoint, the drone thing, honestly, as much as you might think drones, it's changed the landscape of how we use drones in military ways and in spying ways. But honestly, this kind of drone usage, it really, I don't think is a national security threat. I don't think so. So it does seem like people are just emboldened to want to get rid of it. And I don't know. I think it's going to damage a very vibrant industry if it goes away. That honestly is completely innocent as far as any sort of spy activities or security risks. I mean, you're going to destroy a whole bunch of people who work and use drones either for a hobby or for a living.
That is basically the angle that DJI is taking.
Sure.
They are essentially saying there's cascading effects to doing this. It hurts a wide range of people, from just, hobbyists all the way through rescue operations, farmers, building, infrastructure. All those things are using DJI drones, and they are arguing that if you ground them all, it just brings a lot of things to a halt.
Yeah. Well, and the big thing to remember as well is, like, the reason DJI has this stranglehold on the market is just because they keep making better and more reliable drones than everyone else. Anytime, we have someone look at, I remember back when we were with DP Review, we had Kara looking at every new drone that came through, and it was always just like reliability is not there, stability is not there compared to what DJI is offering right now. And
it's like they were multiple generations behind.
Yes,
what
exactly.
DJI was doing, and that's why all these companies have pulled out of the consumer segment. They're going straight for enterprise, because the types of things that they need, they can charge more there, and that allows them to build in certain features that they couldn't afford to in consumer versions. Yeah.
So I don't know. We're gonna have to see. Is it going to be an outright ban? Is it going to be a reduction to only certain drones for certain purposes? Certain
the bill
levels of
would ban
resolution?
them entirely.
Of course.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe it'll be amended or changed, or who knows?
Yeah, this would essentially put DJI in a worse position than TikTok, because TikTok was given an out, all that they could divest, which isn't great out, but it is one. DJI has no out in this bill that I'm aware of. If it passes, they lose their FCC license and they can no longer operate in the United States, which is wild.
Canada's
so we'll
good.
see. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Canada tends to follow United States, so
yeah. Well, that's true. But it's interesting to see. Like, obviously, other countries got on the TikTok ban as far as government phone usage does. Like, I know we did here in Canada. I think, like, a lot of the other Commonwealth nations did. Australia apparently does have a ban on DJI. Did I read that in here? Apparently.
I've heard
for government use or something.
Yeah,
like that?
well, we have there's in the U.S. that's banned for a lot of the same purposes too. Yeah. Just like how a lot of those phones, like Huawei, and I don't think you can have TikTok on government devices either, stuff like that.
No, but I believe the drones as well are already banned in certain applications. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, it's like, you can cut off data sharing. I mean, the operators can choose to show and use the data in certain ways, how much they're going to share, and what they don't want to share. Like, I don't know. Crazy. There's lots of stuff from China. There's gonna be a lot of bans.
Yeah. All right.
Right. A lot of smartphones, a lot of cameras, a lot of mirrorless cameras made in China.
I guess before we move on, my question here is, DJI owns Hasselblad.
Yeah.
So like this bill wouldn't affect DJI's other products, like their gimbal systems and whatnot.
Right. Yeah. The Ronin, that kind of stuff.
So obviously I don't think it would encompass Hasselblad either, but it's just like, it's a lot of
drones is still their bread and butter. I mean, I'm sure that's probably like 95% of their profit
and it's a logical fallacy to say it's a slippery slope, but you would think that if they successfully ban one thing, they just keep going. Now, if they do that to DJI, you could argue that banning TikTok is what allowed it. So, I mean,
I wonder how much actual research and science has gone in the background to really justify these decisions. I haven't been a super spy for a long time. It's been a lot of years, but when, I would assume that nowadays super spies have way better and more, interesting technology to get the results that they need to get, rather than, somebody's DJI Mini 3 Pro that they're flying over a river valley. So, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
See how it goes.
So also happened over the weekend, Adobe has removed an AI image that was, quote, in the style of Ansel Adams after the late photographer's estate blasted them on social media. So I've linked to the story in the description so you can see it, but Adobe was selling, someone had created a bunch of images that look like Ansel Adams photos and was selling them. And apparently Ansel Adams' estate had been trying to get this addressed since last year. And they finally were on their last gasp. They went onto Threads and Twitter and just called out Adobe and essentially it was like this is, you are officially on our last nerve with this behavior, and that got traction, and Adobe did remove the images because they, quote, go against our generative AI content policy. And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on this, because you can make AI images and you can sell them on Adobe stock. Why is this a problem?
I think one thing we have to appreciate is this is a little bit different in that Ansel Adams organization, I mean, the trust and foundation that was left behind, they're very strict on their name being used, or Ansel Adams' name being used, right? So I don't know that you can really enforce. I mean, how do you stop AI generative imagery on somebody's style, right? I mean, you could just type in the prompt black and white landscape photos in the style of famous American national parks landscape photographer from the 1960s.
Often
right?
photographed wearing a hat. Yes.
Yeah.
And it'll figure it out.
It's not like you have to put in Ansel Adams. The fact that it says in the style of Ansel Adams, I would even argue those photos don't really look like Ansel Adams photos. But, to have that listed in there, sure, if you don't want the name in there, that's totally, I get it. But as far as targeting AI imagery in this way, I don't know. I don't think we should necessarily be using famous photographers' names in the AI titles and selling it as like, this is Ernst Haas kind of photography or what. I mean, I don't really agree with that either. But as far as the actual images themselves go.
Yeah, like it's in the metadata for these, and they're going to start to develop like a trend. I absolutely want to jump on and do like, puddle picture, black and white in the style of Chris Niccolls and see what we get there.
I'm very curious. I don't really take those very often.
Yeah. And they're not up on Adobe stock yet, but it will get there eventually. Yeah, I think this is going to be a real issue. What is the cutoff for how famous a photographer has to be? They basically have to have the brute force to just threaten Adobe and actually have some clout. For everyone else, like smaller photographers, they're just going to be constantly tagging in the style of blank, and it's not something that they'll be able to stop. At least Adobe's using their own libraries. You look at, the other stuff like Midjourney or whatever, it's just scraping the internet, and that's going to work with every photographer's name.
Oh yeah, it's already out of control, right? So I mean, is the issue you just don't put in the style of Ansel Adams, like just don't have his name in there?
Yeah, I'm actually, just out of curiosity, decided to go search for another photographer who is reasonably famous and see if they had anything that came up when I did this that was AI. I'm like, well, what happens if you search Brenizer? Like the Brenizer method?
Yeah.
Does that bring up anything? I am getting results. But like, does he care enough? I don't know.
But I mean, you could put names and tags and stuff. Can they stop you from putting Ansel Adams as a hashtag for the search engines?
I think so. Well, not for search engines, but on Adobe stock, because I think that's what the argument is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think this is just going to be more and more of an issue moving forward.
All right. Here's another story that's somewhat interesting. According to a survey done by the Japanese government, less than half of all Japanese households own a digital camera. And this is self-reporting. They would go in, they would knock on a door and ask, do you have a digital camera? And less than half said yes. It was something like 48%. This is the first time.
Well, it's Japan, so the rest are all shooting film, right, Jaron?
So this is sort of tied to the idea that smartphones aren't cameras, which I take issue with. I disagree with that stance. SIPA, the group that does the battery testing, which is never accurate because their test is bad, and they also do tracking of sales. They don't count a smartphone as a camera. And I guess for tracking sales, that sort of makes some sense, because then you wouldn't be able to say that standalone digital camera sales have collapsed in the last couple of years. But
I think it's important to keep them separate, I do think, as far as statistics go. But yes, you can take photography on smartphones in a very powerful way.
Yeah. So 48.6% of those surveyed said they owned a digital camera. That's the first time since 2004 that it has fallen below 50%.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Which I think that's still pretty high. Like, what's the North American rate.
I mean, we just don't have a number on that, but I'm sure it's dramatically
bet you it's
lower. Like
around- I
there
bet
is
you
a
it's lower
real
than that.
photography culture. Like when we were in Japan, cameras everywhere. It's fun. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, where's Waldoing while I'm over there? Like, oh my God, that person has a K3 monochrome. That's amazing.
Right.
You know?
But
That's
to be
great.
fair, Jordan, those were all tourists, and they were in a very touristy spot, right? Like, I think a huge part of it, obviously, is just family. It was very normal to have a digital camera, and before that, obviously, a film camera to capture family moments, right?
Mhm.
And that kind of stuff has gone away largely,
Yes.
and that makes sense because the smartphone just makes more sense for that. We all do it. And we have the digital cameras. Unless I'm doing it for a project, I don't generally go shoot my family stuff with an actual camera. Personally, I don't. Not in many cases. But so I think that makes sense. You know, Japanese households, if you don't have family, or if you're, if you have kids and stuff and vacations, you're still just going to use your smartphone. Why have a digital camera, right? So really, what we're seeing is when I look at these statistics, all it really shows me is how many people are actually interested in photography as an actual pursuit.
Well,
Right?
I mean, there's lots of people who are interested in it as a pursuit using their smartphone for it.
Sure.
I always just liken the number of camera owners. We hit like this weird bump where every new parent was getting a DSLR or an advanced compact or something like that. And I really do feel like we're going back to what it was like 30 years ago, where in every family there was the uncle or whatever was the person with the camera who took the pictures, the really good ones, and everyone else just used like a disposable camera or whatever, which is now a smartphone effectively. And I just think
Ouch.
that's where it's eventually going to go back to is, it's not something where every person is going to have $1,000 digital
Jordan
camera
Drake
anymore.
calls smartphones the disposable camera of the photographic world.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Put it on the next round of t-shirts. I'll do it.
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, yeah, I think, like Jaron was saying, smartphones have gotten so good now. I don't often feel like I'm really missing out creatively when I'm taking certain family stuff or landscapes. I mean,
Chris,
there's
I
a lot
have
of
watched you put
Yeah.
an expensive camera under your arm so you could pull your phone out and take a picture.
I was just going to say, yeah, there's so many situations where I'll shoot a landscape or something in RAW or waterfalls when we're in Portland and stuff. And then I was like, I'll also do it with the smartphone because I know it's going to give me a good handling of contrast. It's going to fill up those shadows. It's going to add nice color. I can tweak it a little bit from there. But as far as for postability, it just makes a lot more sense for speed and use. And the image quality is fine for that kind of application. So yeah, I think smartphones, it makes sense. It covers a lot of genres of photography that you would normally, I would even say people would have to drag out their fancy camera to do and didn't actually enjoy doing that, but they had no alternative. Now they have an alternative. Anyways, I don't think it's that doom and gloom, but
No.
I would be interested to see what the numbers are for other regions as well.
Yeah. I don't think we're ever going to get that, but because the Japanese government does some great internal, like publicly available.
Everyone
data.
there is like, a survey? I get to do a survey today?
Yeah.
Let
Oh,
me.
boy.
You can't just walk around North America and bang on people's doors and say, hey, do you have a digital camera in your house right now? Is it really expensive?
Where in North
I can't
America,
see
every
any-
poll is just the result from like widows in their 70s.
I want one that will start like now and then in 10 more years ask again. I want to know how many American households have installed a bidet. I want to see if that stat goes up because I feel like because I think they're getting more popular. I don't know.
Every time
As
I
they
take a
should.
trip to Japan, I'm tempted to add to that statistic. So.
Yeah, they are
Man.
incredible. All right, one more.
Is this the digression we need?
Man, Japan and
Minutes
Europe
on
have had
bidets.
these things for decades and decades and decades, and only finally now North Americans like, man, I kind of want to be clean too.
Only kind of though. All right,
Kinda,
last news story is also related to Japan. Kodak cameras, Kodak branded, I should say,
Yes.
that are filled with 10-year-old technology at minimum are selling like absolute hotcakes at the Best Buy equivalent in Japan. They're selling tons of them. In fact, Kodak has overtaken its BCNR. So Yobidashi is more, and like the other cameras, like say camera in
The
their name
nicer
or whatever.
ones.
They're not
Yeah.
really camera stores. They're
That's
like
where I go
Walmarts.
for a washer and dryer. Yeah.
But BCNR is a large retailer there, and on the list of camera companies, Kodak is now selling the highest percentage share over everyone else. They're beating Canon, Sony, Nikon, OM, everybody. And it's because of these three cameras, the Kodak PixPro FZ55, the FZ45, and the WPZ2. And these cameras are pieces of garbage, and they are selling like crazy. And the main reason being BCNR is arguing it's because they make it look like they were cameras from the past. Like that, these are the popular thing right now. Take a camera that looks like a worse camera that you already have. I should point out, they're called Kodak, but Kodak is just truly the master at making money on their name. They will license that name seemingly to anyone. If you want to make a Kodak branded product, you can license the name and slap that logo on the side of an
make
inflatable
our
pool.
Shirts Kodak brand?
We would have to pay them probably a lot, but Eastman Kodak is unrelated.
I'm sure we
to
can
this.
handle it. I'm not involved in the numbers.
We could probably
this.
do Vivitar or Polaroid because they do the same thing.
Oh, yeah, let's do Vivitar. Yeah,
Vivitar.
It always makes me think then, like, imagine all of these liquidation houses like 8 years ago where they have boxes and boxes of these Vivitar, Polaroid, and Kodak, absolutely rebranded piece of garbage cameras, and they're trying to get rid of them like $10 each, like $15 each, and now those things are worth a fortune again. It blows my mind.
These things are still
just about to.
What?
Yeah. I was just going to say, were they about to go bury them in the desert like ET Atari cartridges? And then someone was like, wait, something's trending on TikTok at the very last
sell
minute.
those for $200. And that's what they're doing. The one that's the number one seller, the FZ55, is a $200 point and shoot that we couldn't find exactly which one it was, but we found a couple that look really similar. It is very similar to a Cybershot W650, which was from the early 2010s. Like the body design is basically identical.
We remember those, Chris.
But that's a CCD sensor, so it's not the same camera. I mean, maybe it is. They're claiming it's CMOS, but they can claim whatever they want. The people who are buying these aren't necessarily going to go pop this thing open and check.
Let's pop one open.
But yeah, my gosh.
Wow.
They're selling like crazy in Japan.
I just finished saying that smartphones have basically replaced all these devices that people want to use, and now it's people are right back into it. Yeah, bad is cool. I think it's great. I mean, it's hilarious. I mean, it's fantastic. Like the whole used market, better than these things ending up in the garbage and trash, which I know a lot of them probably did. You know, like think of how many perfectly good digital cameras ended up in the garbage because like nobody would take it. Right? Family members like, hey, do you want blah, blah, blah's old camera? It's been sitting here forever. Like, no, it's a piece of garbage. I got a phone. And now everybody's like eager to find those at thrift stores and will pay top dollar and stuff. It's hilarious.
That delighted me when we were in San Francisco and found that old camera store, and they had an entire wall of like CCD cameras, ! Yep. And it was just old garbage. But
for like $500 US, like crazy stuff. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. All right. That's the news for this week.
Anybody wants to buy my Olympus stylus? I got like a stylus 750 or something like that. Clamshell. $1,500 yours. Used by Chris Niccolls.
Will you sign it?
XD cards. I will throw in the XD cards.
Was that the same thing that's in my Fujifilm?
Probably. And you can still get Li42B batteries on Amazon. So $1,500. Maybe I'll do a better price for you guys. Just let me know. Okay?
Just put a single hair in the memory card slot. Like there is an actual
I'll fill
Chris
it with
Niccolls
DNA.
hair.
I will saturate the camera with DNA before I sell it.
I really don't like the way you said that.
No.
Saturated it with DNA.
The word saturated has never been horrifying until right now.
Let's go and talk about Sigma. So I originally wanted to have this as our main story segment, but Jordan overruled me, so we'll only talk about this one a little bit. But I wanted to get your guys' opinion because Sigma has been known now since the 35mm for DSLRs way back when that they can make excellent prime lenses. Like if you want a really good third-party prime, you buy a Sigma. Mm-hmm. Zooms, though, have been a tough nut for them to crack. They have had mixed results. The only one that I feel like is like revered was the one that we used for a long time, Jordan, the 1835.
The 1835, yeah. Just a completely unique lens with not that many drawbacks. And I mean, this is not to say like that their zooms are bad necessarily.
No, they're not bad. They're just not to the level of the primes.
The primes are often best in class where, you know, I think Tamron is doing a fantastic job with zooms as well. They're not standing out quite that much. And it's also interesting, you know, Tamron isn't doing much in the way of primes right now as well.
Yeah. We talked about that in the car recently where it's just like, whatever happened to our Tamron primes? We liked those primes.
Yeah, they're good. Their 1.8 primes are great and they're beautiful looking and they made a real push and now it's like, they've
stopped.
just kind of stopped.
Yeah, the 35-1.4 was maybe the last DSLR lens we ever reviewed, and it won our Lens of the Year.
It was a good lens.
Yeah, for their DSLR mount. So yeah, it does seem very odd in that regard.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of it is a lot of their zooms, they were doing the classic third-party thing. It's a less expensive alternative to a first-party one. What's interesting about this new zoom and the 1835 before it is they're just like, well, we can do this, so let's do it. And we touched on it. Like, this is not a Chris Niccolls lens.
No,
the 28 to 45. It's not very much range. It is definitely big and bulky.
We should give some context to the listeners. Yeah, we're talking about this. We did just test the 28 to 45 1.8. That's kind of the impetus for this, right? Mm-hmm. It's like a 35 mil 1.8 that has a little bit on either side that you can push a bit. I mean, in my opinion, it's not
the dream.
It's not. I don't love it. Like Sigma have certainly done something very interesting recently where they've come out as a third-party manufacturer and said, you know what, we have optical chops and we are going to flex them. And they have been flexing them, and it's been really good, right? I mean, awesome primes. We've been talking about lenses where you would take their option over the first-party manufacturers, despite the fact that they're, in favor of the fact that they're less money, but also that they're optically equal or better in some cases, right? So that's amazing. The zoom lenses, I'm still a little bit mixed on. I think they're great. There's no doubt. They make good zoom lenses. I don't necessarily think all of their zoom lenses achieve what a lot of the first-party manufacturers do, the OEM manufacturers, but they get close. Like the Sigma 70 to 200 2.8, the latest version's a good lens. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's still heavier and bulkier and not as good optically as some of the first-party manufacturers. So you would save a little bit of money, but it's not like that compelling to me. This 2845 is another one where it's not. I mean, it's good and it's interesting. It's a flex because nobody else makes a 1.8 zoom. Somebody did make a funny joke. One of our commenters, it was great, where they're like, next up is going to be like a 45 to 53 millimeter 1.4 zoom. Like, amazing, like world's first. Like, yeah. And I get where that joke's coming from, because it's like, yeah, it's a fairly limited range. I still came to the conclusion that a couple primes, because forget 35 mil, would make me happier than buying this lens. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have merit for certain event shooters and videographers. I think
there you go.
Value there.
Yeah,
and it's
I
a good
this
price.
Lens. Jordan,
for video, I think it makes a ton of sense. I'm very much looking forward to shooting more video with it. Another one that occurred to me, we should maybe check in with Christy Odom, our friend who's been on the pod before, is I could see this being amazing for underwater photography, where the barrel's not extending. You've got a 1.8 aperture and a choice of a couple different frames. And really, long lenses are useless underwater. You're shooting normal to wide. So this might be absolutely the perfect choice for those people. I did see a little pushback on the price. I think the price is insanely good.
I'm confused by that take.
Yeah.
That some are saying that it's expensive. I'm not. It's like I don't think
most
it's that
people
expensive.
are saying it's great value.
Yeah, I think that's, to me, makes more sense. I don't know why you would think this is expensive.
If you look at it in terms of against primes, yeah. It is more money, absolutely, right?
Like just one prime, right? Not three primes?
Well,
no, we did kind of run the numbers on that, but on all the ones we were looking at,
primes.
the issue there is most of your f2 and 1.8s are entry-level lenses. They're not great wide. I mean, certainly like the central sharpness on this lens is fantastic wide open. The corners definitely suffer at 28, no question.
I think when you say fantastic, Jordan, I don't know if you're from the same perspective as I am, but if it's fantastic for video, if you were like, it's just fine for. I saw your results, Chris. I saw that wide open in the center. It's good. It's not fantastic. You stop down a little, it becomes, oh, that's why. But in video, I would have no qualms at shooting wide open.
Even 8K, like honestly, we're testing this at 60 megapixels and zooming it in 1-to-1 when we're doing comparisons there. So any of the lower resolution bodies or 8K video, I think you'll be absolutely satisfied with that. But yeah, I really would like to see them kind of get creative with the zooms again. One thing I was kind of surprised by is, this is a different thought than, the APS-C 1835. We called it the full framatron, because you would get the same kind of look as a 2.8 lens on a full frame. That shallow depth of field with it. You'd be able to get more than a stop of low light performance, which would make up the difference between APS-C and full frame. So I still think there's definitely a place for that lens, for micro four thirds and for APS-C to kind of step you up to the next sensor level. And it's weird to me we haven't seen an APS-C follow up to the 1835 and the 50 to 100 because I think people would be really excited for those, especially like Fuji shooters. It would make a ton of sense.
Sony E-mount, A6700 and stuff too, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess the real takeaway here is Sigma's having a great time. I'm not going to say year. They've been killing it for quite a few years now, right? But they've absolutely cemented themselves as an alternative to whatever brand of camera lens you're using right now. And a very solid alternative, in a lot of cases still less money for basically the same performance. And so that's a huge achievement. And I think the real telling complaint, if you're going to give them any complaint on the market, is people are like, when can I get this from my camera brand? Which isn't Sigma's fault.
Nope,
but that's
Sigma's
the real
fault at all.
complaint, which is a real testament to the lens quality of Sigma, that people are like, please, dear Lord, I need this for my camera. Please make this happen for me somehow.
Yeah.
So that's actually a really nice compliment.
Canon shooters are likely you're screaming into the void. You're not going to get what you want.
Nikon Z users, I know the
Nikon one is very confusing to me. I'm not really sure why Nikon's not letting Sigma do it. I am certain Sigma has asked and Nikon said no for now for whatever reason. And I don't know, if you're shooting on Nikon, keep being loud. Eventually they'll hear you. Canon eventually heard us all yelling, all Canon shooters being like, can we please have some? And they're like, well, kind of sort of here, maybe.
Kind of sort of for APS-C.
A little bit, but
yeah, we'll see how it goes.
I mean, the one thing I can say is if you talk about Sigma, they have a few like signature lenses. Like the 14 millimeter is definitely one. I think the 500 5.6 is going to become one of them. What they don't have is like, what is the famous signature Sigma zoom lens since that 18 to 35? Like Tamron has the 35 to 150. I think we will, want to see like a fairly general use, but very unique zoom before they're really taken a little more seriously in that space.
It's interesting you say that because the 24 to 70, neither of you mentioned it yet.
And it's great.
That is a truly fabulous lens. Is that not worthwhile?
You talking about the original?
The new one, the one that you just
versioned
too.
Great.
It's
great.
But again, we're saying like it's absolutely incredible that it's competing with a GM2 for half the price. And it's an incredible value. It's the one I'd recommend for most people. But I'm still not seeing that lens like the Tamron 35-150 I keep bringing up, where it's like there's nothing else like this from a first party manufacturer, and it's outstanding and it's very versatile.
I see.
That's what I'd love to see from Sigma.
All right on. Okay. Jordan, why would you buy a $2,000 micro four thirds camera in 2020?
Oh, let me tell you, Jaron, because this GH7, I'm excited about this thing. We kind of talk about it in the video, which has come out yesterday. Definitely give it a watch if you haven't. But it was really frustrating for me. I love using micro four thirds for shooting video, largely because Panasonic has their 10 to 25, 25 to 50 millimeter f1.7 lenses, which are made for video. Stepless apertures. The breathing's very well corrected. It has a focus clutch. When I'm shooting all the time, even these new cameras with really good autofocus, depending on the situation, I'm constantly just like, pull that clutch back, manually focus. It's a lot of features like that are really exclusive to the micro four thirds. So I keep using them, but it's been really tough for me because I've got this GH6 sitting over here by my B-roll setup, which definitely had some limitations. Like the base ISO dynamic range is not great on it. The autofocus, it was still their DFD contrast based, which meant it was pulsing a lot. I couldn't really rely on it. And then we had the G9 II, which didn't have the same kind of recording codecs. The body definitely wasn't designed as much for video work, but it had absolutely fantastic phase-detect autofocus on it, a more effective stabilizer. So that was the camera that I always brought out into the world with me, just for those features. And now I don't have to choose. Like the GH7, it's just like, oh, well, this is the best body for video in every single regard and has some cool stuff. You say like a $2,000 body when you're getting into full frame options at that point, or something like an XH2S with a bigger sensor again. But those aren't giving you like, this 32-bit float audio is something I've been asking for forever. It's so incredibly useful to just be able to like record as long as the actual microphone capsules themselves don't clip. you can recover all your audio and mix it afterwards. It's absolutely fantastic. And things like internal RAW recording, which, I say in the video, like, did they just sneak past, well, Nikon and Red were kind of distracted, getting to know each other, and Panasonic's just like, I'm just going to kind of throw that internal compressed RAW in here. Things like that. It's just a lot of features you're not going to get until you basically go up to like a Z8, I would say, is your next step up, where you're still getting like a similar feature set. And even there, it's not giving you the 32-bit audio. The stabilizer isn't as good on it. It's not doing oversampled 4K 120. Like, this just checks so many boxes if you're willing to work within the sensor size. I
guess a question that you will easily get. The S5 2X is the same price.
Yes.
Explain.
And that gets, there we're moving up to a larger sensor, and that is going to give you better low light performance, better dynamic range, even though dynamic range on the GH7 is quite good because of its DR boost mode that's always on, by the way, with this, which is really nice. So that is kind of the trade-off. If I'm shooting an S5 2X, I can do 4K 60, but with a Super 35 crop. If I'm on the GH7, I'm going up to 4K 60, there's absolutely no drawbacks. 4K 120, I lose a little bit of DR, but it's still oversampled. So big advantages on that. And I just think that is a mid-level to entry level in their full frame lineup, where with the GH7, they've just thrown all of their highest level professional features. That BNC cable for jamming time code, the better design for the screen articulation, all that kind of stuff. And I said at the end, like, I know what this means. We're getting an S2H or an S1H2, and it's probably going to be a very similar body to this GH7 here with a full frame sensor, which hopefully reads out faster, but it's going to be a hell of a lot more money. So if you can make do with the Micro Four Thirds, you're getting a very professional video tool with, I'm guessing it's going to be $4,500 for an S2H, S1H2 when it comes out. Right. That would be my guess. But yeah, for pure video quality, that S5 2X is going to give you a better image in some situations. But in a lot of other ones, like slow motion recording, or anytime you've got a concern with potential rolling shutter, the GH7 is going to mop the floor with the S5 II. You know what? Just buy them both. That's the solution. Quick and easy.
Anything to add here, Chris?
Sure. So first thing I'll say about with Jordan's experience that I've noticed shooting with him now for so many years, it's. I'm going to go ahead and make a blanket statement, and there's obviously more nuance to this.
It'll be flattering, right? Say. It's going to be a flattering blanket statement.
Yeah. I know about cameras, about video. So dynamic range is absolutely important for sure. But as Jordan mentioned, a lot of the modern smaller sensor cameras still achieve excellent dynamic range. They really do. With log files that can cover most situations that we deal with as far as contrast goes. So video doesn't really have a high requirement for resolution. That's my blanket statement. And that's a big advantage when it comes to being able to go across many different platforms. Not like stills where, a 60 or 100 megapixel sensor, it doesn't mean you'll need it, but it certainly has a substantial difference in image quality if you are going to push it that way, right? So what I found really interesting about Jordan's experience watching him use many different cameras, I've seen him go from like, the S5 is like an amazing camera, blah, 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 or the S1H, like this is fantastic, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, like, the Panasonic G9, this is like my new camera. Like every week it seems to be like, Chris, this is like the new YouTube camera I'm going to use. And my observation is it's never had anything to do with the actual sensor size itself or the image quality. It's always had to do with the tools that he's getting, the exposure tools, the capabilities, the conveniences, how it enhances his workflow to create the videos in the most intuitive and seamless way possible. So that was always really telling to me that what he's really looking for isn't bigger sensors or smaller sensors. It's, I want a camera that's a really capable tool. And so for photography, it's a bit different. For photography, for me, to go to a $2,000 Micro Four Thirds camera, it would really have to do a couple things. So one option that I think it has is a niche that's very good is like what the OM1 series does, where it's an expensive camera, but you are getting something very rugged. It works well for wildlife with big telephotos that give you good reach without being humongous physically. I think that's an interesting compromise, the computational techniques where you can say, I'm going to give up some of the inherent image quality that I would get with a larger sensor, but I'm getting workable tools that really enhance my experience out there. The only other niche I think that Micro Four Thirds could really own that they're not owning right now, especially given the climate now where people are buying Kodak, Z55s for $200, is Micro Four Thirds could absolutely make killer ultra compact cameras like the GM series that would be insanely popular today. Very pocketable, very fun, still manual control, still interchangeable lenses, but with all the fun kind of experience that a compact point and shoot would give you. And so I'd like to see that return. That would be really compelling. Otherwise, I think Micro Four Thirds for photography is great as a specialized niche tool for outdoor, rugged, adventure, wildlife kind of stuff. Personally, I don't know that I would invest in it myself if I was looking for landscape, studio portrait work. There, I think larger sensors do make more sense for the money. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic between photography and video with this sensor size.
Yeah, I think it's worth bringing up that when we were shooting the Blair doc, and actually in Idaho as well, we were juggling Micro Four Thirds combined with full frame because they both had their own strengths. Shooting low light in the base or in restaurants or something, it was all S5 II. X for that. But then as soon as we're out, anywhere where there might be slow motion requirements or we're going to be walking with the cameras because of the better stabilization, the G9 got used. And in this case, the GH7 is going to fill that exact same role for us. So It depends on the type of stuff that you're shooting.
It does. Yeah.
I don't YouTubing, like this is, I kept thinking, like, what do I complain about? Like, I am really struggling. This feels like it's built for me very specifically. Yeah. There's some areas where it's not going to satisfy, but for the work that I like to do with the lenses I like to use, this is an almost perfect camera for me. I just wish the battery life was better.
I think a lot
I don't
of people...
want to downplay like the larger sensor and its importance in video because there, commercial applications, certain specific looks for depth of field and stuff. Absolutely. But for our YouTube show, I mean, there's so many times that we throw in iPhone 15 Pro video footage and it's seamless.
You can't tell.
You can't tell. So it's like, there's more to it when it comes to video than just raw sensor size image quality.
Absolutely.
I think the part of this discussion that a lot of photographers who are, getting equipment these days will struggle with is that there isn't the ability to tell someone that one camera does everything. And a lot of people want that. A lot of people want this idea that one camera is going to be perfect for all applications. I was actually somewhat struggling with this recently. I had two people come to me simultaneously with like, I've decided to get into photography. What should I buy? And I'm like, my God, my friend, I cannot help you with such a broad statement. And I feel rude answering like that. But it's like, you got to narrow it down. You have to tell me what you're doing and then why. One of them eventually ended up getting a Nikon Z8 and a bunch of Nikon lenses because that's
the closest to a camera that can do anything on the market, I think, right now.
The other guy I'm talking to is about to go, he has only ever used his phone, and he's about to go take wildlife photos in Africa. And I'm like, my friend, you have selected the third most difficult thing to do with no experience in photography, and you want me to tell you what you need to buy. And there's a reason why all those pictures you see people in the savannah have these massive lenses. There's a reason for all of that.
Is your budget $15,000?
Yeah, they say like, well, they're expected to get between X and X feet of the animal, so I don't really need that much zoom. I'm like, you do realize these are wild animals, right? They don't do the expected ever. So it's been a tough discussion with them because it's like, well, I don't want to spend too much. I want to rent maybe and that sort of stuff, but then what can I use? I'm like, even after we've selected the camera, I still have to teach you how to use it. It's not the same thing as pulling a camera out of the pocket. So it's a hard leap for a lot of folks to hear that they may need more than one system if they want to do all of the things that they want to do, and because that's way more expensive. But I think at this point in the camera world where you do have such a vast difference of where these different companies are trying to put their niche or where they succeed, it's becoming more difficult to find a do everything camera than it used to be, in my opinion. And I think it's because of expectations have also gone up. When you say do everything, they mean do everything amazing and fantastic and truly great. And that is very, very difficult. And I think I do agree with you, Jordan, as far as the cameras that do fit in that sphere. It's like the Z8 and
A1 maybe would be in the conversation for that.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't love the A1 personally, but maybe
Z8 would be a good all-around choice. It's the ultimate all-around camera. Yeah.
So, cool. We kind of got it a little bit farther away than I thought we were going to on that one. But hopefully you've answered the question, and I'm sure we're going to see shot on Panasonic GH7 in the front of your
just
videos.
Try and stop me,
Well, it's funny too, because we're going to get you the new Sigma lens we just talked about for L mount, so that you can shoot with the S5 2X on it. But are you going to use it that much if you have the GH7?
So it's going to sit in like a beautiful little glass case waiting for the S2H or S1H2, whatever they wind up calling it. And on that moment, I will crack it out and I will be like, we have a body perfectly mated for you, my friend. And I'll film it in slow motion with a dreamy soundtrack. It's going to be a beautiful moment.
I guess. Even then, though, we never really push full frame sensors in a big way for our show, right? Like it's not really, I don't know. My favorite thing about the GH7, two things. First off, I don't have to hear Jordan complain about bumping the shutter angle anymore because that's a pain in the ass. And the second thing is Jordan likes to double tap the record button a lot, which means that I do a perfectly good take, but it hasn't recorded. And now I get a tally lamp again. And that's amazing because he could be like, go for it. I'll be like, nope. Not till you hit that button.
Can we rephrase? Jordan likes to double tap the record button too. Jordan's
he hates it,
fine motor skills are not up to par, and as a result, he often accidentally will double tap a record button.
Yes,
especially when it's cold.
Jordan's satanically possessed right finger loves to double tap to destroy his spirit.
So one last thing on the GH series. I have been pretty hands off when it comes to cameras in recent years. I haven't gotten any of my own. I haven't purchased anything, and I haven't asked a company for anything except Fujifilm and the camera they won't give me. So the
and what camera is that, Jaron?
The X100.
What's the focal length?
Which you're going to regret buying in 3 months anyway.
No, so. I guarantee you. Anyway, I'm waiting for them to get in stock. At any rate, I have actually said the GH7 is the natural step for me to come back and shoot more again. So if we haven't aired them yet, but there's going to be some episodes coming up where there's seemingly more than one camera person, and that's because I'm camera personing again, and I enjoy it. And I think
it's so nice. Oh
yeah! Every time Jordan hands you a Panasonic, you use it, and you're like, oh, this is actually really nice.
Yeah,
right?
it just takes me back to what I was doing, but now it has all the features I wish it had back when I was shooting GH5. So I'm gonna shoot GH7 too. So not two numbers, like as well. So it's the camera I've selected is like, yep, this is a good time for me to get back in and start shooting again on my own stuff.
The only camera I feel bad for, and I is the G9 II, because that's such a great camera, but it was kind of released as the photographer's camera, and then everybody ended up using it for video because it just had some video features that are good. It still was missing some stuff, which the GH7 now rectifies. So the strongest feature of the G9 II for us has been its video capabilities. GH7 blows that out of the water, although it is a little bit more expensive. But for photography, the G9, I don't find it that compelling personally.
You can actually give it to him now, Jordan. He could shoot. I know. Lay his hands.
Maybe
I'll
use it more.
It might be perfect for
you, because you have thus far not allowed him to do that. He's not allowed to touch.
He was actually complaining on this very podcast that I wouldn't let him touch the G9 II. Yeah. So now is this is your window, Chris.
But what would it do better than an OM1?
I mean, definitely the video record mode's video quality is dramatically better.
Yeah. So we'll see.
And you're using the OM1 to shoot fishing shows, so this would do a better job. And the log is way more malleable. And there's so many things, Chris.
So talk to me after the show.
So
again, it's not a photographer's camera; it's a videographer's camera that has no tally lamp. Okay, and it's easy to adjust the shutter angle.
That is a real problem.
Let's move on to talking about what is going on with your forehead, Jordan. I need to know. You wouldn't tell me before the show started. So what have you been up to?
Jordan doesn't like to talk about the bar fights he gets into because it's not really like part of his personality.
When I've been editing for days, I'm just like, God, I just want to feel something again. So I'll just go get in a fight, I'll even bring a broken bottle with no intention of using it on them. I'm just hoping that they take a couple swipes at me too. Again,
it's
for
a
that,
real
that
Hemingway
adrenaline
tortured
rush.
kind of thing.
I really want to know, please.
Okay, so I had
they just got a cat, brand new cat. Congratulations on the brand new kitten. That's
Not
really
doing
cool.
that.
It's not a cat. Is it a falcon? Did you get a brand new falcon?
Yes,
No.
he's into falconry now.
You know, my brother is kind of into falconry. Maybe I should jump on that as well.
What? Of course he is.
Yeah, it's the most
Okay,
Tyler
so
thing you can do.
let's stop joking around. So amateur wrestling, I think this is cool. This is really good for you to get back into shape.
Oh my God.
Okay. This weekend, there was a competition for scootering and BMX that my son took place in. So it was dragging around a lot of stuff, and his bike got stuck in the back of our SUV. So I'm like reefing on this tire wheel, like trying to get it out, and eventually the tire like pops out. I'm not taking into account these things have handlebars, which if you suddenly pull it straight back could just like slide right across a person's forehead.
You didn't realize a bicycle has handlebars.
I'm a simple man, Chris.
Okay,
And
I'm just double checking for context. That's all.
I want to point out at this point, I was not in a clear state of mind. I was very frustrated with the
Oh,
stuck
I know
wheel
that
in
version of Jordan. I've seen it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
all care goes out the window. Any sort of logical thought. It's
I
pure
don't
animal
think of
passion.
what might happen in the second step of a process at that. I get obsessed with one
Yeah.
part of the process, which often
Me pull
leads
hard,
to,
bike come out.
yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. Not like bike come at me fast, bad,
No.
which is what it should have done. So, anyways, the bad news is my job requires me to be on camera very regularly. And this is like 3
What I
days
find
ago. So it's going to
fascinating-
take a while to disappear, I think.
I find fascinating though that like the direction of the cuts changes. Like multiple times you cut. I don't know. Like it's strange. Anyways, I think the other stories we came up with were far more exciting and like, put you in a better light.
No, I think
whatever.
the narrative of mine was really compelling, and I think our listeners will agree.
Whenever
Let
I
us know in the
Like,
comments below if this was an exciting enough reason for
Handle hit you in
Jordan's
the
head
face.
trauma. I should have just said it was in Japan because I banged my head like crazy up there. I should have just said
Dude.
this was the result of that. But no, that is hidden in my hairline where no one can actually see the
Once
trauma.
a trip, you have to smash your head into something in Japan. It's like it's a given, and it's traumatic. And I don't know what the next one's going to be.
If I didn't leave my blood on a Japanese ceiling, did I ever really even visit Japan? Right?
Speaking of DNA being left places, I guess. Well,
Jeez.
Jordan, that is terrible. Whenever I used to get damage to my face, I would say something like, I lost a fight with a lawnmower or a nail clipper or something like that. And then I'd leave it at that. But I thank you for sharing that you lost a fight with a bicycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My candor has really gotten me far.
If
in
it
my
makes
I like the
professional
bar
career.
fight better.
Feel better.
I-
My legs are almost as damaged as your forehead because I spent the weekend tearing out bushes and trees.
Dude, I did the same thing.
Really?
Yeah, and my legs cut up really bad.
Yeah,
I won't show you, but I've got 2 huge cuts on my left leg and multiple on my right.
Mine are all scabby now, but like I pulled. So the bushes and trees I showed you the last time you were here, a good chunk of the dead ones that were on the right side, the trees, those are all down now. And I pulled out all those boxwoods that you said you liked, Chris. Yeah, those are gone now. I ripped those out.
Yeah, because you have terrible taste.
The yard is significantly larger looking suddenly without all of this greenery in there. But yeah, that's what I've been up to.
Got to have a
Huge and
blank slate to
lifeless.
start over.
I'm gonna put other plants in.
You got a nice space there. It's a lot of potential. Yeah.
It's just rough. Chris, anything to add?
Not really. Oh, to go with our conversation last week on the podcast, I was playing BG3, Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
And like many Baldur's Gate players before me, I decided to throw away countless hours of effort to restart my character as Dark Urge. We were talking about this, restarted, did the Dark Urge play.
So you're urging it.
I'm really liking it. I think it makes your main character like far more involved in the actual storyline.
Yeah.
Which is nice. Otherwise, so many role-playing games, the main character is kind of just like a voiceless blah that goes through.
The events are happening to you. You're not happening to the events.
Yeah. So I'm actually really enjoying it. So I just finished Act 1. I apparently have,
I want to go do a Dark Urge run.
Got 150 hours more to go or something. I don't know. But yeah, the
least.
Dark Urge run's really good.
If you
yeah,
wanna
I'm really
complete the whole
enjoying it.
game.
And then you get to play because again, BG3, I get to play this sort of gray area person, not the paragon of goodness that I usually play. So, and I'm enjoying it. So
I'm marking this on my calendar. Chris gets Taste of Evil.
Yes.
And then from this point forward, we'll see if this is actually kind of where the timeline shifts to you following that urge in real life to whatever path it might take you down.
Oh, I've been following some dark urges for quite some time, actually.
All right, we're gonna do tech support, and we have a lot of these, so that will be how we'll end the show, with a bunch of tech support questions. But there's one that I actually wanted to bring up that I stumbled across on Threads, and I forgot to put it in this thing, so I'm gonna read it to you.
Oh,
great! No prep, perfect.
Someone posted, their name is Jake Fossmeyer Photo. Can someone explain to me why they can't make a 24 to 85 f1.2? And then in parentheses, don't actually explain it to me. I don't want to hear that it's not possible. I just want one. And I responded to this. I mean, we could make that. Mm-hmm. It's possible.
Not we. They could.
Right, they could. And it would probably be Sigma. So I wanted to pose to you guys, what would this look like? Like physically, how much would it weigh? How many knocks would it weigh? And then how big would it be? So my guess is it would be closer to 2 knocks, if not slightly less than 2 knocks. And it would still fit in most camera bags that can fit a 24 to 70 in there. I think it would fit in a 24 to 70 bag. A 70 to 200 bag, my bad. And I think it's possible. It would just be exceedingly heavy. And that's it could be done.
The one I keep going back to is that either the 28 to 70 or 24-105 Canons, those new lenses that are brighter than typically they are in their class. And the 24-105 is already pushing, a telephoto bag at 2.8. I mean, at 1.2, that should be like 3 times the size. I think it's going to wind up looking very similar to like a classic 500 f4 or something like that. Like,
really?
I think it'd be too wide.
It would be like super. It would be stumpy, but really big front element. It could look really cool.
How much would it weigh?
Optically, it would be garbage at anything wide open. And
I'm going to say 3.5 knocked.
3.5 knocks?
No. The precision required to actually make those glass elements work properly, obviously it'd be stupendously expensive. There's zero market for it. There's no point. So that's why nobody does it, right? I mean, these envelopes can be pushed, but there's no market for it. And there's no reason.
What it would cost, if Sigma made it would cost $8,000.
Oh, it'd be tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I'm going to say $20,000.
$20,000?
Probably more.
Really?
That's my guess.
I mean, because you'd be having to figure out engineering feats to actually create the glass like that, and actually optically correct it properly. I think it'd be ridiculous. Yeah. Anyways,
there you
sorry,
go.
We shouldn't have told him.
He didn't want to hear it.
He asked not to hear it. We still did anyways. So
all right. So the first actual one that you guys are prepared for is a speak pipe from Peter. Let's listen in.
Hi guys, I wanted to start by saying happy belated 40th birthday to you, Jordan. I'm actually turning 40 myself in the next couple of days, and I'm taking that upcoming milestone to be a bit reflective about the past few decades of my photographic journey, and I've been thinking about 2 questions I wanted to ask to all of you. The first one is, what piece of tech or gear or shooting style, something like that, that you initially thought wouldn't be that important or influential to your own shooting has now become integral to your lives? And the second question being the inverse, some tech or gear or whatever that you initially thought would change the game, but turned out to be a bit of a dud. Love the podcast and all that you're doing over at PetaPixel, and thanks so much. Bye.
I'll go first because we're 40th birthday buddies. So the big one that came out and really surprised me is the monopod. We had them at the store. I never really looked at them, but I live on a monopod. It's just a perfect balance between like a handheld and a tripod-based look. Use it as a poor man's Steadicam. I almost never, unless I need to travel with just without a checked bag, I pretty much always have a monopod with me. And that's really important to my style. The one I thought would be really important, which is actually quite timely this week, is raw video, compressed raw video. I was like, I can't wait till I have compressed raw video. It'll be so easy to work with. I'll have so much flexibility in post. But the thing is, we already have log, which gets you most of the DR and most of the flexibility of that. Like I said in the video, where you really need raw video is if you have to really push the white balance dramatically, which usually I don't do, and then to have more control over things like your noise reduction on it. But for the kind of work I do, it's just not that useful. If I were doing filmmaking and I'm passing it off to a skilled colorist, then absolutely. But for the majority of people, I always recommend, like, just learn to work with log video and you'll save a ton of storage and your results will be very, very similar. So that was, a bit of something I was very excited for that I actually almost never use.
So, in my case, I don't know. The thing that I thought I would never do is go to an Apple iOS device as a smartphone, right? I always said I would never. And I'm not saying I couldn't do every. I mean, I still like Android. This is not an Android versus Apple thing, but I did it because I was forced to under duress by the other two guys that you see on there, so that I can airdrop and stuff. And actually, that's become very handy. Airdropping with Jordan and Jaron, or even actually some of the guys at the fishing store.
Oh, there was that point I did airdrop you something, and you're like, oh, that was easy.
Yeah, no, it's great. And it has become integral to my life, obviously, right? And I don't see myself ever switching back because what a pain in the ass that is. So,
got him.
That surprised me, and so much so, and this kind of leads into my second thing. I don't really have a piece of gear or something I've tried that's become a dud, honestly, that I thought would be good. I'm kind of pretty conservative about what I use or what I buy. I'm kind of an old dog. I don't like to learn new tricks and stuff. So I would say Apple is also my potential dud, because having used it now and enjoying it, I'm trying to make the iPad work as a workflow beyond like the actual computer. I'm trying to make the iPhone work as a video tool for fishing rather than the OM system for some stuff where it's just
G9 II is right over there. Nobody's using it. You can just take that G9 II right now.
Yeah, I know, right? No, but here's the thing. And this isn't a knock against any of the guys I work with. It's just, if you're not photographically inclined or if you're not using a camera on a regular basis, handing somebody an OM1 and saying, operate this can be quite difficult, right? Getting focus precise, making sure the exposure is good.
He wasn't talking about us.
It's tough. I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about the guys that for fishing, right? So it's nice to have an iPhone where I can set it up for video in log, but basically just say, like, don't worry, it'll basically focus on whatever's in front. The exposure is going to be handled. Just hit record. It's a small device. So I'm going to try to make that work for some of that workflow and see how it goes. That could end up being a dud. The iPad is very powerful, but I still hate the iOS. Like, I just want to burn it sometimes and throw it in the garbage and then break it in half. So that could be a problem too. So some issues to be addressed. It might turn out to be a dud. We'll see.
I thought that IBIS was not necessary. I remember thinking that. I remember for a long time I thought
That's a good one.
Just sneering at Pentaxians?
Well, it was a yeah.
All those Konica Minolta boys, you're just like amateur.
I remember because I was a Canon DSLR guy, and then I was using GH series stuff eventually for video. So I eventually was getting access to IBIS, but I was like, it's not that good. It's never going to be that good. I mean, I'm never going to need this. That I was wrong. It really ended up being so good. So much better.
So good.
It's I was wrong. So that was surprising to me. And the one that I thought was going to be a game changer but was a dud are really cool large RAID arrays. The SSD just ate their lunch on that. I would never recommend a hard drive array to anyone anymore. I'm using I'm looking at them right now. I got two separate SSD arrays here instead. They're silent and smaller. And I remember seeing the G Speed Studio from G Technologies, which is now just a SanDisk brand. They got rid of the brand, but it was like the one that had a handle on it that was designed to travel. I had one. It was like the 10 bay one.
You were the coolest kid walking around.
I was the coolest kid for like 3 months. I eventually sold that to a friend, and the best part about it is he lives in Alaska, and I could stick that bad boy in a box and ship it to him. And because it was designed to ship it, it made it just fine. But RAID arrays to me, they were like, I was way into them, really enjoyed them, and nope, not anymore.
I just have to quickly throw one more in I just thought of because I'm looking at it. The Peak Design Travel Tripod. I thought that would solve all of my problems, but that's the worst designed head I've ever used. Every time I use it for anything other than a perfectly level shot where I'm looking at a camera.
But have we found the ultimate travel tripod yet?
No,
I don't think no one's made the ultimate.
I think the tripod situation is basically what we talked about earlier with cameras. There is no one size fits all tripod, despite what everybody seems to think they want.
Yeah, I want something the size of a Peak Design that like never moves and doesn't cost $10,000.
Yeah, we can't talk about specifically what yet, but I had Chris try out an upcoming tripod, and I did confirm they are aware that it's not that stable on for super long exposures, and if you do it, you have to bring that head neck way down in order to get them. And they still don't
better than the Peak Design though.
Yeah, so there's trade-offs with everything. Let's move on to another speak pipe. This one is from Joel Wolfson. Let's listen in.
Hi, Jordan, Chris, and Jaron. Joel Wolfson here from the South Bay area in California. Thanks for the great podcast, and congratulations, Chris and Jordan, on your 1-year anniversary with PetaPixel. On your last podcast, I was laughing out loud while listening to Jordan's rant about the term DSLR being used incorrectly. Jordan, I can relate. I'm a fair amount older than you, so I know this is an age-related thing. And happy 40th, by the way. I found as I get older, I get a little more annoyed about words being used incorrectly. I'm going to add another one here. Why do photographers keep saying post-processing when they really mean processing? I know historically this might come from the motion picture business, but I don't know if that explains why photographers say it, especially if they were born in the 90s or later. Post-processing means after being processed. So why not just say processing? Just saying. I guess in the end, language evolves, but that doesn't mean we can't laugh at it, and God knows I don't want to be accused of having OFS, old fart syndrome. Happy shooting, guys. Thanks again for discussing the language and terminology aspects of photography and providing us the insight as well as the humor.
Man, this 40th birthday thing I should have made a bigger deal of it. Everybody cares quite a bit. I think post-processing should be framing. Can we just say that from now on? That's it's when you're framing your picture after it has been processed. So I went back and checked, and we kind of split the difference. Sometimes we just call it processing. Sometimes we do call it post-processing. So I don't know. Should we try and rally the charge? Like when we said we're going type instead of inch when we're talking about compact sensors. Should this be the next thing? We're going to try and get rid of post-processing as a term. What do you think, Chris?
No, I mean, I like being able to say post. I think that's a cute colloquial term for
underrated
as a
Spielberg
form
film.
Sorry? Yeah.
Underrated Spielberg film, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Like, hey, I'll just do it in post and stuff. I think that's fine. I don't mind that. I'm not a big stickler for grammar, obviously. Don't say anything, Jaron. And I'm not a big stickler for, appropriate word usage. I kind of miss now. There was a time when you could use more metaphor and you could use things in a more poetic sense, or because they were related, more on a spiritual level than a literal interpretation. And I just feel like that's going away now. And so I'm kind of anti-word police personally. I kind of think as long as you get your message across in the language, I think it should evolve and it should change. So I like post-processing, and I like to say it processing instead of processing, right? Or processing instead of processing. So
are you a pro or a prod, Jaron?
Yeah. The only thing that does drive me crazy, if I was going to have a word thing, because it's not poetic or a metaphor, it's completely used wrong, is literal. Can't stand the wrong use of the word literal. That drives me crazy. So
irregardless.
That's it. Well, irregardless, yeah, sure. But, that's a grammar. Yeah, that's annoying too. But, I don't, yeah.
The damping,
I hate the term literal being used incorrectly.
Well, the dampened and dampening,
dampening.
Yeah, well, damped, which we've just said, I'm going to call it dampened. And then in a recent episode, you said damped. And I'm like, I don't even know what's going on anymore. We're not taking a side on this. So I don't know, man.
Anyways,
forcing us to keep moving.
Thank you, Jaron.
On YouTube, John C. had a question. Question for next week related to point and shoot cameras. If Ricoh has been so successful with their GR series, why has no other manufacturer made anything similar? A camera you can fit in your normal pocket without a big lens sticking out. We've kind of brushed against this before, and I'm going to say I think it's because all these companies got so spooked by the absolute collapse of point and shoots that they just decided to stop making them altogether because they were losing so much money.
Yep.
What do you think?
I think that's accurate. I think, like I said, I stuck my neck out there and said in 2 years, we're going to have a pile of these cameras, and I stand by it.
Yeah, we did kind of say that last time. And again, I really wanted GM return, or both OM System and Panasonic have a real opportunity here to recreate Micro Four Thirds compacts, because that is one seriously substantial benefit of that small sensor is you can make interchangeable cameras that is honestly smaller than probably a lot of the point and shoots you could buy nowadays. And so I really think that should return. Why not? Like, the lenses already exist. You don't have to make new optics. You just have to re-release a body. So maybe a Panasonic S9 Micro Four Thirds. That would be cute. That would be cool. In fact, I think that might have been a more appropriate enclave for that camera anyways.
Yeah, the sensors read out faster, so it'll be less issues on the photography side if they did do that. We heard your cries, everyone, and this summer we will be reviewing the Leica Deluxe 8 as well. We're talking about little compact cameras that are very capable.
Yep. The next one is an email from Yamin. Hi guys, love the podcast so much, especially Chris's bits. He's so charmingly silly.
You're one in a million, and I really appreciate that. So it's like two of us in the world enjoy my silly bits, you and me. So there you go. That's great. I'm not alone. I like
if I wasn't competing with you for breathing room on this podcast, I think I would find it delightful.
My question. My setup is a Canon 7D Mark II, normally with either a 24 f2.8 prime or a 24-70 f2.8 L Mark I, or a nifty 50. I shoot mostly street and small local live music gigs. Got it. For the live music gigs, I've set up a custom profile and aperture priority to maximize the aperture and auto ISO. I have set the max ISO to 3200 and also a minimum shutter speed to 1/125th. However, I still find some photos dipping below 1/125th to 1/60th or even 1/15th, resulting in unwanted blur. I couldn't find anything online or at the local camera shop about this issue. Is it a software bug? Is there something I'm not understanding about minimum shutter speed? Would love your input. Right now, I'm setting a hard limit on minimum shutter speed by restricting the shutter speed range. Thank you, Yamin.
Yeah, so I mean, what you're coming up against is just that you've set limitations on the camera, and the light that you're being given is outside of those limitations. So I use auto ISO all the time. I love it, especially in an aperture priority setup, and I use it with a fixed minimum shutter speed all the time. I mean, that's probably my primary way of shooting. I can let the ISO do its thing. I know that I'm going to at least get that particular minimum shutter speed, and I can choose my aperture for depth of field. But that all being said, I don't tend to restrict the upper limit of the ISO. So if you've restricted it to 3200, you don't want it to go higher than that. Then the problem is, if the light gets so low, you've chosen an aperture and that's too tight. The ISO can't go above 3200, but it wants to. And so the camera has no choice but to drop the shutter speed below 1/25th because it needs the light. Otherwise, you're going to get massive underexposure. So, either way, you'd be in trouble, right? So what you got to do is either make sure that using an aperture that's as wide as possible, given that light condition, and let the ISO go higher than 3200 if it needs to. That's the only way you're going to get proper exposure in very dark situations.
It's worth pointing out the 7D2 is an older style sensor where you really in low light don't want to have to boost those photos in post. They will fall apart very quickly. So you want to get them basically exposed correctly in camera. And look, so Chris's advice is perfect advice. There is
and you don't want to go above 3200 ISO on a 7D Mark II, but honestly, it's just, you will get more leeway with a more modern sensor. Absolutely.
You should buy a Sigma 1.8 zoom. That'll fix your problems.
Or get a Canon full frame camera so you can use your existing glass. It'll do better at higher ISOs. Yeah, you'll at least be able to go 6400 or 12800 and get similar results.
All right. We got two more. The first one is a speak pipe from Kyler Bybee. Let's listen in.
Hey guys, last year I purchased the Panasonic S5 IIX, and it's been a great camera system. The only problem I have with the system is that the lenses are kind of large. In the rumor mill, there's been talk of Panasonic releasing a rangefinder style full frame camera, and I'm wondering if you all think that potentially there could be more compact lenses made for the L-mount system. If this is a possibility, maybe the L in L mount doesn't stand for large. What are your thoughts?
So this was clearly set before the S9 launch, where we know they did bring out that compact body and a very compact, weirdly, I don't like to throw around useless, but man, that lens,
not good.
I really enjoyed seeing the comparisons of like the 28
gotta
millimeter
tell them what lens,
2.8.
Jordan.
The 26 mil f8 manual focus. Barely any communication lens that they released with that as well. It is small, but it's not terribly useful. They do have quite a few in the Sigma Contemporary series out there that are very compact lenses. The 45, especially when this camera came out, we're like, why didn't they just have us all borrow a 45 millimeter for this shoot? Because that will make perfect sense on that body. I think it really comes down to how well that S9 does. If it does well, they're going to bring out a lot of compact glass to support that, hopefully with like autofocus and usable apertures and all kinds of fun stuff. But for the time being, we do have a smaller zoom on the way that would actually match with that quite well.
Yeah, it was the develop announcement for it.
But yeah, Panasonic is just not focusing on compact lenses. So it's Sigma
Full
Contemporary.
frame is full frame, though. Like you can only do so much. The 20 to 60 does give you a very usable range. It's not fast, but it's fairly compact. I ended up using some Sigma full frame primes on there, and those worked fantastic. And then they were very compact, appropriate for the size. To be fair, like the Panasonic 1.8 primes, like they're 35, they're 50 mil and stuff. Like the 85 1.8, they're maybe a little bulky, just the way they build them, but they're by no stretch long or heavy. So they're very lightweight. They're also a really nice option for that. With you're not going to feel the weight. It'd be a very light package to carry around. So some primes are nice, but otherwise full frame. There's limitations on how small you can make a zoom.
Yeah, I do think we'll see more.
Yeah.
All right, last
maybe
one.
like a nice compact f4 zoom would be nice on there.
Oh, you love f4, so yeah, that makes sense.
I don't mind.
By the way, for anyone who's curious, the development announcement that was announced alongside this pancake lens we don't recommend you buy is a Lumix S 18 to 40 f4 5 to 6.3, and those specs tell me it's going to be relatively compact.
They did have like some mock-ups in their presentation of it, and yeah, it looks quite compact.
So there you go. All right, last one. Is kind of multi-tiered, and the beginning of it I will save for the very end. So for folks who would want to know exactly what this looks like, I will end the show with it, and you can take that to your nightmares. But here we go. Simon Williamson in an email said, "Good morning. I'm hoping this is going to be the right person." Jaron, it was. Congratulations, you got to me. But I think Jordan mentioned it would be good to see a Photoshop pic of you guys as Muppets. So I've had
this is Jordan's idea. Terrible idea.
I've had a quick
Jaron
go on
Kermit.
my break, and I've attached it for you guys. And I'm going to show it to all y'all. And I'm
Nightmare
sorry in
fuel.
advance. Anyway, I would also like to thank you all for a great show. The chemistry is great. The collective knowledge is immense. And I love listening in, even for topics I normally wouldn't interest me. My only complaint is having to wait a week between them. Thank you. Here it is. I don't know if this is a question might be too specific, but I guess it can't hurt to ask. After over a decade using Canon DSLRs, when I eventually decided to make the move completely to mirrorless, I decided to go with Sony and start fresh compiling an arsenal of lenses. Okay, and the 24 to 240 zoom for when I'm just out and about shooting casually is one of the group that he uses among primes 20, 35, 50, and 85. However, I've had my head turned slightly by Canon introducing the 28 to 70 f2 and especially the 24 to 105 f2.8, both of which I think are extremely useful zooms. Do you think Sony or another third-party manufacturer may create something similar for E-mount? I know we have the Tamron 35 to 150 and a Samyang version 2, but when standing on windy beach in the wilds of North Cumberland, not wanting to change lenses, will something wider would be useful, as well as having some range. And a 24 to 105 f2.8 or similar would be an almost ideal focal length, while having a reasonably fast aperture for some shallow depth of field. Thanks in advance, and have a great day. And again, I will show that Photoshop as we end the show.
And we
actually,
apologize.
you look great. Your frog face matches your hair perfectly, Jaron. It's really nice. Yeah, I like it.
Jordan's is terrifying. At any rate, do you think Sony is going to make, or anyone will make, lenses that like the ones that Canon is making for its own mount?
I could certainly see Sigma making a 28 to 70 f1.8 just to screw over Canon. I mean, that 28 to 70 f2 is one of my favorite lenses from Canon. I really like it. It is expensive, unfortunately, and it's going to be heavy and bulky, but I would just go for it. It's so nice. The 24 105 2.8 is absolutely useful. walking the beaches in Northumberland in the wilds, I don't know why you would need 2.8. I mean, personally, if I'm shooting outdoors, I'm happy with a tighter aperture, but obviously for low light, for portrait work, it's really nice to have that.
I think it's just going to depend on how successful this Canon lens is. The 28 to 70 is a huge talking point. I don't know how well it's sold. I feel like this 24-105 2.8 might do very well. And if that's the case, Sony's absolutely going to, stand up and pay attention to it, or leave it up to the third parties to do something similar. But now that that standard is there, if it turns out that people are willing to pay $3,000 for it, then I think we'll definitely see some duplicates.
I don't know if I would see Sony, like I could see Sigma building something like a 28 to 70 f2 for sure.
It's really simple, Chris. We just say, you know what? Sony could never make a 24-105 f2.8. No. Their engineers couldn't even come up with, and right now they're just like that Jordan Drake. Okay, we'll get to the design. Pull up the schematics.
But I know it's confusing because we're talking about Sony and we're talking about Sigma. So I could certainly see Sigma making a 28 to 70 f2. That sounds like it's their wheelhouse. I could see Sony making a 24-105 f2.8. Sorry, 24
Would they try and one up them and go 24 to 70 f2?
Oh, I don't know if Sony would do that, but certainly the 24-105 2.8. I could see Sony doing that, like because they do like their zooms like that, their versatile zooms, and it is a very useful lens. And I feel like the Canon one maybe loses people because it's a little bit more video centric in some ways, and very expensive. I mean, the Sony lens would probably be very expensive too. Let's not beat around the bush. But if Sigma made a 28 to 70 f2, I would take a look at that. Yeah, I would take.
Well, you have to. It's your job. But whether you use it afterwards,
but I'd enjoy the
question. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us this week. Chris and Jordan are actually about to get on a plane and come back to Portland to see me for another undisclosed
Our second
project.
home, apparently.
We just couldn't be away from you. We should have stayed all week.
Should have. Didn't want to, actually. That was a request from both of you not to do that. So they're coming
families.
back. You will see the fruits of their labor in the coming weeks, and we will hopefully be able to talk about it more then. Otherwise, we'll catch you all next time. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Thanks,
T-shirts
bye.
coming soon. T-shirts.
And now you say, look at the horror that has been drawn for us.
Oh, God, kill it. Kill all three.